The following is a special presentation of NJN, live coverage of Governor Jim Florio's 1993 State of the State Address.
Good afternoon. I'm Kent Manahan. We'll be listening to Governor Jim Florio deliver his third State of the State Address in just a few minutes. From all reports, it looks to be a speech that paints a positive economic picture for New Jersey, presenting a plan that would funnel billions of dollars into economic development. It also calls for a new bipartisan effort to take place in New Jersey through the new year. With us today to discuss and analyze the governor's State of the State Address, Democratic consultant Steve D'Amico and Republican consultant Bill Palatucci. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Bill, to start with you, as a Republican, how would you characterize today's State of the State Address? Good, fair, perhaps not as upbeat of an economic picture that a Democratic governor is expected to present in this, what's thought to be his upcoming election year? He hasn't announced yet.
Sure. Well, I think one comment you could say off the top is a lot has been said in the papers recently that it's a very short speech. That might be because he doesn't have a lot to talk about and a lot of accomplishments to point to. I think it's important at this time in Jim Florio's tenure, in his third year in office, to put it in context. I think you can look back from between Byrne to Kane. I think you find Jim Florio somewhere in between. Brendan Byrne was fighting for his political life at this point in his governorship of New Jersey. Tom Kane was at the height of his popularity, building to a crescendo of a major re-election campaign. I think you find Jim Florio somewhere in the middle. Better than he was last year, but by contrast, nowhere near where any governor would like to be, and certainly where Tom Kane was giving this speech in the third year of his governorship.
Now, I would expect Steve's going to disagree with that.
Well,
in that Jim Florio's not where he might want to be.
Look, let's put it this way. I think he's made a lot of progress, especially in the last 4 to 6 months. And whether or not he is where he wants to be today is certainly a less relevant question than whether he's going to be where he wants to be should he run in November. So I think what we need to do is sort of place this speech in some sort of perspective.
What about the tone of this speech, given that the first State of the State Address might have been characterized as perhaps an apology for what was called the biggest increase in taxes in New Jersey history? Is this more of a building tone, building on past accomplishments of the last 3 years?
I think you make a good point. I think that the first speech was more of an explanation for why he took the measures that he did in the spring of 1990. And what you see in this, I think, is much more forward-looking. What he is trying to do with this speech is really build on a program that has turned out to be a bipartisan program over the last year with Republican control of the legislature for a very aggressive economic recovery program. And what is different about this speech than even last year's is that it's very specific, it is very task-oriented, and I think, what's missing, we have to focus on what's missing.
I'm going to hold you up on what's missing because we've got some time to discuss that. I'm going to toss it now to my colleague Larry Stupnagel, who was down covering the State of the State Address live for us this afternoon in the Assembly chambers. Larry, I know the legislature was in session today. Anything accomplished on that front before the address began this afternoon? All right. Well, we lost Larry, I am told. So where did we leave off here on what
Steve
needs
was talking
to be
about it's forward-looking, and again, I want to bring it back to this point. I think the reason it is forward-looking because Jim Florio is not where he wants to be. I mean, any governor when he takes office has to think about the next 4 years. What do I want to accomplish? And Jim Florio had a terrible first year. The tax increases and everything that happened in 1990. You want to get to your third year in terms of building towards a re-election, saying, here's what we accomplished. Let's stand up and take pride in those things, and sure, there's more to be done, and let's move forward. That is not what this speech is today. I agree with you. It's forward-looking. It's forward-looking because he has not put his cornerstones in place in order to the way he wanted to. And the cornerstone for Jim Florio in the first year, what he wanted it to be. And I'm not at this point trying to be critical. I'm simply trying to explain what he's doing today. And this is really in his re-election year. The cornerstone was supposed to be QEA, and it's not.
Is this anything then different than what you might have expected, Steve, from a governor in what's thought to be his re-election?
No, I guess, well, let me put it this way. I think what we have here, and I want to respond to what Bill said, because I don't totally disagree with it, as strange as that may seem. I think what we have here is a situation where the political environment is really quite different this year in which he's given this speech, because he is emerging since even as recently as last November, with sort of a bipartisan compact here, which he didn't have a year ago. And it is almost as though some of the things that he is spelling out as accomplishments today, and some of the things he is proposing to build on those accomplishments, are things that he's really done and will do in partnership with Republican majorities in both houses.
Which he even mentions. We have seen an advance copy of the text,
Sure.
and there are numerous instances during the speech where the governor acknowledges Democrats and Republicans alike for their cooperation in putting in passing these measures that he's considering his accomplishments. So it's smart politics then. Everybody wants to jump in.
Well, no,
but it is smart politics.
It is smart politics.
In an election year when the full legislature is up for grabs as well.
Well, that's true, and he wants to continue as long as he can to kind of keep the legislature from firing at him, from ripping apart his budget and cutting taxes when he wasn't proposing it, and cutting his budget when he had proposed it. I mean, Jim Florio does not want to rerun the last 2 years, maybe the last few months, but maybe the last 2 years, and that's why he's
that
looking.
Got a smile out of you.
Of course it did, and of course, that's why he's trying to look very, very forward, because he doesn't want people to remember the beginning and the start of this administration.
See, but I want to suggest something here that I think is very important. There is a bit of a political, a strategic conundrum here for the Republicans.
No.
And what it is this. We're talking about the survival here of Republican majorities as well as the survival of a Democratic governor here. And there is a very strong survival instinct here, not only at work, not only here in this speech, but in how both Senator DeFrancesco, Speaker Haitayan, and the governor have behaved over the last few months. I think that presents a problem for any Republican gubernatorial candidate, because if this spirit of cooperation continues, and I expect that it will, it must, I think you're going to have a situation where Carrie Edwards, Christie Whitman, whomever may emerge from the Republican Party's primary, is going to be implicitly criticizing Republican majorities when they criticize Florio on certain advances.
Do you believe, Bill, that it can last as we get into the nitty-gritty of an election year?
Oh, I think Steve's right in terms on the legislative basis between the legislators and the governor. They'll attempt to do that. I would, though, urge Republican legislators to continue to find ways to cut taxes or to eliminate taxes or reduce taxes and to cut the budget and to take Jim Florio's budget next month and begin to talk about reducing it and keep on the track that they've done very successfully. Now, I think there's nothing wrong with legislators compromising with the governor and moving forward on health care and other issues. But I don't think that causes a problem for the eventual Republican nominee.
You see, it's a very key problem because the fact is that by not having repealed the majority of the tax reform program, the Republicans have in fact endorsed it.
No, that's
now,
not true.
that was the keystone of their platform in 1991, was that they were going to review those taxes. They haven't even done that part. So I think that they're in a very difficult box here. Yeah, the good thing I was going to say a moment ago, what was missing from this speech.
I am told now, Steve and Bill, that we are going to go now to the joint session of the legislature in the Assembly chambers for today's State of the State address. Larry?
Well, Kent, here's the situation. They've just finished the Star-Spangled Banner. We're very close to the governor entering this chamber. We're told he's waiting in the wings outside the door. The Speaker of the Assembly, Chuck Haitayan, along with Donald DeFrancesco, the Senate President, along with the joint session of the legislature, are all here for the governor's State of the State message. And the governor is now entering the chamber, escorted by members of the legislature. He is receiving the traditional standing ovation. We are told the governor's speech will run about 30 minutes. It will include comments that say there will be no tax hike in the next few years. The governor will also say there is going to be he will make an effort anyway to keep down New Jersey transit fare hikes. He is going to call for a $1 billion capital improvement program to create an estimated 30,000 jobs. He's also going to call on the state to enter into the new era of technology with environmental improvement industry. If the planet is indeed in need of cleaning up, Governor Florio's State of the State message will address ways that the state can be involved in developing the technologies to do just that. The governor, of course, is being warmly received here. This, as we've heard our two guests comment, is going to be a different speech, and I've heard from talking to lawmakers that at least for the budget process this year anyway, the governor is going to have an easier time of it than he had last year. There is a, quote, spirit of cooperation going into this election year between the Assembly Speaker, the Senate President, and the overwhelming Republican majorities in the legislature, and Governor Florio. And the key reason for that, of course, is that they're all up for re-election. Let's go down to the floor now for Donald E. Francesco's introduction of the governor.
Thank you all very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Senate President, Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of the legislature, and ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin, I'd like to take just a few moments to pay tribute to some very special people who are here with us today. People whose deeds speak to the very best that we have here in New Jersey. Last month, as we all know, we had a storm in New Jersey that won't soon be forgotten. It was a devastating weekend, and yet so inspiring was the way that people came together to help each other that I can truly say that I was never more proud to be the governor of the state of New Jersey than during that period. With your permission, I would like to just point out just a few of the people whose efforts were so typical of other countless acts of courage and caring that we witnessed all over our state. On the morning of December 12th, Victoria Wells of Clifton was married to Joseph Hollis of Garfield. But that morning, the family of the bride discovered that the roads to the reception hall were flooded and the hall had no electricity. As Mrs. Wells put it to me in her letter, after calming down, I took a chance and made a phone call to the Bethwood in Totowa. Frank Pombo Jr. of Little Falls, who is the owner of the hall, answered Mrs. Wells' plea and was able to hold a reception for 150 guests on just 6 hours' notice. Frank, please stand up and let us see you. You saved the day for the couple, and ladies and gentlemen, the newlyweds are here as well. Coming when the storm did, it obviously put a bit of a damper on the holiday season for a whole lot of people. But in Highlands Borough, the work of one dedicated woman was there, Lillian Gordon. She worked very hard to ensure that the children would not be forgotten. Lillian is a social worker at the Highlands Elementary School. She spent hours on the phone soliciting donations for a toy drive, and then she went out and purchased gifts that were distributed to all the children all over the area. Lillian, please stand up and be recognized. You kept the holiday spirit alive for a lot of people. And finally, when Rich Gruskos of Oceanport realized that high water was threatening his neighbors' homes, he and his son John put on their wetsuits, pulled out the rowboat out of their garage, and spent hours pushing it up and down the street in water that was 6 feet deep and winds of 70 miles an hour. The 15 people that they rescued, they took to their home, and Rich's wife, Michelle, gave them dry clothes and hot food. Rich, John, and Michelle, stand up. You're truly lifesavers for the people in your community. Nice stories. Ladies and gentlemen, last month, New Jersey said goodbye to one of our best-loved citizens, a hero to many New Jerseyans, our former governor and Chief Justice, Richard Hughes. Each of us, I'm sure, has our own memories of Governor Hughes. I know that I do. When this legislature changed hands from one party to another a year ago, I was worried. No offense, Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, but I was worried. I was concerned and afraid that we might spend the next 2 years fighting each other instead of fighting the recession, fighting for a better New Jersey. But Governor Hughes called me at home the morning after the election and assured me that it didn't have to be that way. He had also seen our party lose control of the legislature halfway through his first term. But some of his accomplishments that he was most proud of occurred after that realignment. He told me, accommodate wherever you can, but never compromise on matters of principle. Governor Hughes understood that we have choices to make. As Democrats and Republicans, we can choose to wear ideological straitjackets that bind us to the failures of the past, or we can seek the freedom of new solutions that will put us on the path to progress. Well, when a two-term governor offers me advice, I listen. Since we last met in these chambers, our greatest achievements have been realized because we recognize that the choice isn't about moving left or right. Rather, it's about going backward or forward, and we have moved forward, and I'm proud of that. Ladies and gentlemen, together we have shown the nation that here in New Jersey, people still have the vision and the will to tackle the big problems. Today, I want to talk about where we can accommodate each other to keep tackling problems like education, public safety, and winning the global race for new jobs and new industries. And I want to make clear the principles on which I stand and where I will not compromise. But first, I want to thank Senate President DeFrancesco, Speaker Haitayan, Senator Lynch, Assemblyman Doria, and every member of this legislature for what we've been able to accomplish this year in health care, in education, school funding, transportation, shore protection. Together, we got the government out of the car insurance business once and for all, and we kept Allstate in the car insurance business. We are together attracting new businesses to our state, more than 100 of them in 1992, with all the jobs and the opportunities that come with them. We're rebuilding our roads and our infrastructure, and we are laying the information highways of the future by being the first in the world to move ahead with fiber optic cable, an accomplishment of tremendous significance. We are breaking gridlock, and good things are happening. A better New Jersey is taking shape, but we're still a work in progress. Now, we need to plan and to prepare for where we want to be and where we want our children to be. We appreciate the wisdom of hockey superstar Wayne Gretzky, who said that he's successful not by being where the puck is, but by being where the puck is going to be. We understand that. Thomas Jefferson said it well when he said that each generation has a moral obligation to pass on to the next opportunities and possibilities for a life at least as great as those that it received from its own parents. That's the promise of America, and that's a promise that we're going to keep here in New Jersey. Eight days from now, this country will welcome a new president. The election of Bill Clinton is a sign, I believe, that the country has indeed found the courage to change. And New Jersey is the vanguard of that change. By accommodating where we could, we have accomplished much, but we have much more to do. Last year, with the help of Senators Bassano and Cody, and Assemblyman Colburn and Felice, we patched our tattered healthcare safety net together. This year, let's mend the last hole by guaranteeing the 250,000 New Jersey children who are uninsured the right to good, affordable health care. Last year, Assemblyman Bryan showed us that welfare ought to be a way out, not a way of life. This year, let's give children and families the education and the training and the child care that they need to make a better life and become productive citizens. Last year, we pulled together to rebuild our shore. This year, Senators Bennett and Krillos have proposed a bill to protect shore communities from future devastation by closing the loopholes in CAFRA, our shore development law. I want to work to make it a law that will preserve and protect our precious Jersey shore. Help me do that. Last year, working with Senators Haynes and Rand, we invested a record amount to build a strong transportation network, and we can be proud of that. I want particularly to acknowledge the invaluable leadership of two of our national leaders who happen to be here today, Senator Lautenberg and Congressman Rowe. This year, let's do even more to keep traffic, our people, and our economy moving. Last year, under the leadership of Senator Lynch and Senator Dorsey, we passed the Permit Extension Act to get good projects that had been stalled because of the credit crunch moving again. And also last year, the Senate President and the Speaker joined me in an historic first. We created a job czar, a chief of economic recovery, to take full advantage of our job-creating capabilities and to expand on the exciting engines of opportunity that already are in place in our state. Places like the Meadowlands Sports Complex, Camden's waterfront and our world-class aquarium, Liberty State Park and the new Science Center. This year, I'm looking forward to seeing the promise of the Newark Performing Arts Center to become a reality. And to breaking ground for the new convention center in Atlantic City on February 24th. This year, I'm putting the job czar, Bob Huey, in charge of a $1 billion capital improvement plan to build an even stronger New Jersey, an even better New Jersey, and to create 30,000 new jobs. The capital improvement plan will provide municipalities with low-interest loans to help build new roads, sewers, and libraries and firehouses and other needed essential facilities. The plan will help entrepreneurs create new hope in our communities. And thanks in large part to the assistance and the cooperation of Senator DeFrancesco and Senator Gormley, the capital improvement plan will include a low-interest loan pool to help communities repair their aging schools and to build new ones. In the 1980s, our state was flush, but we didn't invest. And now our roads and our bridges, our school buildings and our sewer systems are in disrepair. We should have done it then, but we must do it now. We will pay for our plan with the money that we saved last year by refinancing our long-term obligations. We won't need any new taxes, and I will not propose any new taxes. From Thomas Edison to Albert Einstein, from David Sarnoff to the scientists who gave us fiber optics, New Jersey has always been on the cutting edge of new technologies, always leading the way in manufacturing, and always bestowing a better life for the next generation. Last year, New Jersey was recognized as the #1 state in the nation in solving environmental problems, a source of great pride to all of us. This year, let's put that leadership and that know-how to work to do more than just clean up the environment. Let's use it to create jobs for our people, good-paying jobs from the laboratories to the factories out to the fields. Because the business of environmental goods and services is big business. It's estimated that by the year 2000, cleaning up the mistakes of the past and preventing pollution in the future will be at least a $300 billion industry, bigger than aerospace, bigger than the chemical industry, and will have with it tens of thousands of jobs. And that market will go to the people who produce the best products and services for the best price and who get them to the market first. I want New Jersey to capture that job-rich new market, and that's a commitment we should all make. So, ladies and gentlemen of the legislature, I'm proposing today a comprehensive 7-point plan to make sure that New Jersey wins that jobs race. Our plan is based on our belief that there ought not to be a Democratic or a Republican approach to creating jobs in the high-paying market. It ought to be a New Jersey approach. First, we'll help New Jersey's environmental entrepreneurs develop and market their ideas by dedicating a portion of our economic recovery fund specifically to environmental technology. Second, we'll target part of our job training grants to make sure that our workforce in this area is the best skilled in the entire nation. Third, we'll offer tax incentives to companies that create new jobs and job training by investing in environmental technology. Speaker Haitayan and the Assemblyman Doria have also suggested some interesting new ways that we can use tax incentives to help manufacturers retool and expand. I want to work with them to fashion incentives that work. Fourth, to transfer our environmental research and development into jobs for New Jersey, I will be asking you to join with me in creating the New Jersey Corporation for Advanced Technology, NJCAT. Just as Japan and Western Europe have demonstrated the benefits of linking academic and industrial bases together, we need to maximize New Jersey's resources and target them to the marketplace. NJCAT will do that by expanding on already successful research programs at places like NJIT, Rutgers, Stevens Institute. That's something that we should be about doing. Fifth, through our Economic Development Authority, we'll create a new loan export program. We'll call it New Jersey Worldwide. It'll be there to help New Jersey companies sell their products throughout the world. Sixth, I'm directing Commissioner McConnell to help business and the commercial real estate industry by matching high-growth businesses in environmental and other high-tech fields with available low-cost office space. We'll also help companies retrofit buildings to make their specific needs and to meet their specific needs in order to make good use of the inventory that we have of existing commercial buildings. And seventh, Thomas Edison called his laboratory in Menlo Park his invention factory. To make our colleges and universities the invention factories of tomorrow, we'll create incubators for environmental technology and other job-rich industries. We'll set aside $10 million from our Economic Recovery Fund to help colleges and universities build and renovate their R&D facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, today, when people around the world think of pharmaceuticals, when they think of telecommunications, when they think of photonics, they think of New Jersey. Tomorrow, when people in Eastern Europe want to clean up the polluted Danube River and make it blue again, when people in Ukraine want to clean up Chernobyl, they will need environmental technology and they will look to New Jersey. In the future, how we work will change, but why we work will remain the same. We all want a better life for our children. Isn't that why we aspire to political office and what brings us here today? It certainly is not for the job security. It's for our children. The lasting greatness of any society is contained in the promise of its children. And the most important thing that we can do is to nurture that promise through education. Last year, we put politics aside and put our children first on the tough question of school financing. I want to thank the teachers and the parents and the school officials and the school board officials, and especially Senator Ewing and Assemblyman Rocco, for helping us to find common ground in this area. This year, let's continue to move forward to make sure that our investments result in good schools, where children can get a genuine education, not just a series of empty promotions through an outdated system. We need not just new money, but we need a new system. Under Dr. Fitzgerald, our new commissioner, we are going to insist on dollars and accountability, because we are kidding ourselves if we think that one is of any value without the other. Our new school monitoring requirements set higher standards for everyone, students, teachers, and school administrators. And we're working with the PTA to put parents at the center of the system, not at the bottom of some bureaucracy. But we can't expect kids to learn if they're hungry or they're sick. So I'd urge all of you to join with me in strengthening Good Starts, our preschool program for kids in some of our poorest communities. We can provide more services to more children in more districts, and we should. By making sure that all of our children come to school ready to learn, we can start to remove poverty as a barrier to educational success. And that's something that should be a commitment that we all are willing to make. 25 years ago, Governor Hughes created the Department of Higher Education to prepare our colleges and our universities for the changing 20th century. To build a higher education system that prepares our children for the new industries of the 21st century, I'm proposing to you a Jobs of the Future bond issue for this November's ballot. This bond issue will help us work with New Jersey businesses and colleges to upgrade the high-tech labs on our campus and to create classrooms that mirror the workplace of the future so that we can attract high-skilled jobs to our state. We can also keep skills high and tuition low by helping colleges and universities purchase high-tech equipment. And that's something that we should be doing as well. But college isn't the only way to prepare young people for the future. And for some, it's not even the best way. Half of our New Jersey young people don't go to college. For too long, they've been forgotten, but they will not be forgotten anymore. Let's resolve to give back to our skilled working people their shot at the American dream. We can do that by creating the New Jersey Youth Apprenticeship Program. Engineers and scientists are very important partners in the high-paying economy that we're trying to build. But just as important are the highly skilled technicians and factory workers who can make the products and deliver the services that we invent. Beginning in the 10th grade, students will be able to take a rigorous 3-year program combining classroom activities and studies and real-life work experiences. I'm pleased that Assemblyman Bob Brown has expressed an interest in this proposal. I'm directing the State Employment and Training Commission to work with the legislators, the Education Department, the Labor Department, and most importantly with the business community to get this program up and running, not sometime in the future, but this year. We can and will close the skills gap for our young people. But we also need to bridge the caring gap that separates too many of our young people from their communities. All over New Jersey, I'm pleased that so many young people are discovering a new sense of community and compassion through voluntary community service projects. From rehabilitating homes to organizing recycling efforts to tutoring, planting gardens, creating community parks. All of those things are extremely gratifying to us. Through a new initiative called New Jersey First, we'll combine federal dollars and New Jersey idealism to create a network of opportunity for more young people to help themselves and their communities. We'll also establish a leadership institute to prepare our top college students to lead New Jersey tomorrow by volunteering to help build New Jersey today. The spirit and the energy of our young people is a wellspring of hope that we need to tap, and we will. But we know that there can't be any sense of community, any long-term economic security where there is no sense of safety. Crime isn't a Democratic or a Republican concern. It is our common concern. This year, we'll continue to fight carjackers, stalkers, and other criminals with increased patrols, public awareness programs, and tough-as-nails law enforcement. But we all also know that the police by themselves can't stop crime. All across our state, people are working with the police to keep their communities safe by organizing block watches, by teaching kids to stay away from drugs. Attorney General Del Tufo has done an excellent job in promoting the concept of community policing. Citizens and police working together to prevent crime before it happens. This year, let's help more communities to fight back against crime. On Friday, 93 new state troopers will graduate. Some of them are here with us today. Gentlemen, would you stand up? Thank you very much. We're making the thin blue line that protects our communities just a little bit wider, because our most important right is the right to be safe and the right to be secure. I particularly want to thank Senator Littell for his help in this regard. The Fighting 113th is the first new class of troopers in 4 years. But ladies and gentlemen, it won't be the last. I am very pleased to announce to you today that we will recruit another new class of troopers this year, the 114th. Education, healthcare, jobs. These are just some of the ways we've tried to heed Governor Hughes's advice about accommodation wherever possible. But let me just say a few words about his admonition not to compromise on matters of principle. Though we may disagree, I hope that you will respect my firm and uncompromising adherence to certain principled beliefs. I believe more than ever that every child deserves the chance to go to a good school so that he or she can earn a good living and have a good life, regardless of where they live. I believe the women of New Jersey, not big government, should have the power to make the most personal, private decision a woman can make. Nothing must interfere with a woman's right to choose. I believe that it's dead wrong to make it easier for criminals to use weapons of war against the citizens of New Jersey. I read a story the other day in the newspaper about New Jerseyans who are risking their own lives to take assault weapons away from crazed thugs who are using them to terrorize neighborhoods in Somalia. If we care about law and order, we need to continue our ban against assault weapons in New Jersey. But the most important principle that I believe in, the first principle, is our shared belief that government ought to serve the people. Last year, 500,000 people in our state turned away from both our political parties to vote for Ross Perot because they didn't believe that government works for them anymore. That's particularly true of middle-class people, the people who pay most of the tab for government. They are sick of lumbering bureaucracies that waste their hard-earned dollars on irrelevant systems and inflexible rules. Without fundamental change, we're all stuck with a system that can't respond to the real needs of real people. Over the last 3 years, we've made some progress, combining agencies, consolidating services. We've saved taxpayers $1.6 billion by following the recommendations of the Governor's Management Review Commission. But there's more that we need to do. To give one example, we can start by returning some common sense to ECRA, our Environmental Cleanup and Recovery Act. ECRA, in some ways, is a national model for holding polluters accountable. Unfortunately, in other ways, it's also a symbol for red tape. Several months ago, I proposed some reforms that would enable us to revitalize abandoned industrial and urban sites and move them back into the economic mainstream. and still in no way compromise our commitment to clean air, clean water, clean land. And I'm very pleased that Senators McNamara and Lesniak are working with Commissioner Weiner to craft my ideas into a workable plan. And I want to work with you to ensure that that law is passed into law as rapidly as possible. But if we want people to trust us, we need to listen to them. So once again, I'm calling on this legislature to give our citizens the right to make their voices heard through initiative and referendum. Finally, people are disillusioned by the growing perception that government is for sale to the highest bidder. A quarter of a century ago, Governor Hughes set us on the road to accountability when he established the Executive Commission on Ethical Standards. Let's finish that journey. Let's give government back to its rightful owners, the people. I want to commend the Senate President and the Assembly Speaker for moving forward with campaign reform proposals, financing proposals. They're going forward in their respective houses. I hope their bills are a first step towards real change. But I have to say what many in this chamber and many outside know, and in some respects have already said, that it's not the strong medicine that we need. You've said it, and I agree. Let's work together to do it together and to do it right. I think that's something that we owe to the people of this state. I'm very proud of the fact that the first executive order that I signed as governor was an order that required the senior members of my administration to disclose what they own and their sources of income. Since then, we've broadened our disclosure requirements to cover members of state boards and independent authorities as well. We've also passed legislation to make those requirements appropriate for local governmental officials and school board officials. This morning, before I came here, I signed 2 more executive orders. The first prohibits state government from leasing or purchasing property in which members of the legislature or their families have a financial stake. And the second requires state agencies and independent authorities to put their contracts through a competitive bidding process, whether they're buying pencils or automobiles. These orders are based on 2 fundamental assumptions: that government officials aren't entitled to any special privileges, and that the taxpayers deserve the best deal for their money. But ladies and gentlemen, there is more for us to do. 8 months ago, I proposed to this legislature comprehensive campaign finance reforms. The reforms set reasonable limits on campaign contributions, and they closed loopholes in our reporting laws so that people know who's giving money to whom. I also proposed, with Senator Adler's support, that we establish a higher ethical standard for all of us in government. We know these reforms can work, and one of the reasons we do is because they're based on the recommendations of the bipartisan Rosenthal Commission, which included the legislative leadership. I'm asking you today to make real reform your first priority. I want to work with all of you to craft a genuine reform bill based on the Rosenthal recommendations. And that bill really must apply to this fall's election, because people don't want to go through another election under a system that appears to be rigged against them. I see no reason why we can't pass a good law within the next month. Let's roll up our sleeves and make sure that we get it done. Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin this new year, this new era in our nation, let's rededicate ourselves to the belief that we are here to solve problems, not to make them. Governor Hughes showed us that the best use of our life is to use it for something that will outlast all of us, something that helps people, that leaves this place a little better than when we found it. When people look back on what we were able to accomplish in 1993, let's make sure that they say of us, they used their time well. They put the public interest ahead of the special interests. They cared not just about the next election, but about the next generation. Thank you all.
So Governor Jim Florio concludes his annual State of the State message before a special joint session of the legislature. He's leading to a standing ovation, shaking hands there with the Senate Majority Leader. Members of his own party now. A well-received speech, getting handshakes now from the opposite side of the aisle. A well-received speech considering this is an election year. He spoke for approximately 50 minutes. Some of the high points in the speech, he promised no tax hikes, and he promised to also hold down fare increases. Let's throw it back to the studio now and Kent Manahan for some analysis there.
All right, Larry, and thank you. But before we do that, we are going to take a break, a quick break in our live coverage here at NJN of Governor Florio's State of the State address, and we'll be right back, so stay with us. And welcome back to NJN's live coverage here of the Governor Florio's State of the State address for 1993. I am joined by my colleagues Steve D'Amico, Democratic consultant, and Bill Palatucci, Republican consultant. We heard the governor talk about jobs creation, a $1 billion plan for that. We heard him mention initiative referendum to call for passage of that this year, better education for New Jersey students. He acknowledged the bipartisan cooperation that now exists between his office and the Republican-controlled legislature. Does this speech, Bill, put Jim Florio where he wants to be at this place in time? Well, or was there too much missing, in your opinion?
Oh, I think that there was a lot missing. Again, let's remember who Jim Florio is and where he is at this point. He's beginning to lay the groundwork to run for re-election. He's trying to cover some bases here that he hasn't put in place over the last 2 years. He didn't talk about taxes. I thought it was outrageous for Jim Florio to talk about, accountability and how we spend education dollars. I mean, talk about closing the barn door after the horses are out. This is a guy who spent over $1 billion more in education funding with QEA and talked about how wonderful our New Jersey schools were going to be as the basis for doing that. And now he wants to talk about accountability and how that money is spent. I mean, that I thought was a real stretch. But again, I think he simply tried, we talked earlier, about trying to get through this year without the legislators shooting at him. And he may begin to accomplish that on
Steve,
some issues.
Let me give you some time.
Well, I think what we have to do here is keep in mind that the governor is, so this might be my third try at it. I'll try to say what was missing from this speech. Was harsh partisanship. I mean, this was a bipartisan speech. It was a compact with the Republican leaders of the legislature. It started a year ago, and I think it's tighter than it's ever been. These guys know that their fates hang together in the balance here, and I think the governor is very much where he wants and needs to be right now. He's positioned, I think, to move forward in a campaign mode because he has, in many respects, the Republican leaders marching right behind him.
In a sentence, Bill, this isn't anything different than what Tom Kean might have done in his final, at the end of his first term, State of the State address.
Oh, I mean, funny you say that. I brought it with me and I read it. It was extremely different. Tom Kean at this point was taking credit for major accomplishments that have been put in place. Jim Florio just talked about creating 30,000 new jobs next year, maybe. At this point, Tom Kean was taking credit for 120,000 new jobs in the last year alone, a 5.7% unemployment rate. Tom Kean was building to a crescendo of
Bill,
accomplishments.
Hold that thought,
I understand it,
and
but
we'll
very,
get back
very
to
different
it
than
because Larry
Tom Kean's.
Stupnagel is standing by with some guests down at the State House, and I'm going to take it now to Larry Stupnagel for some reaction right there on the spot. Larry?
Well, Kent, down on the floor there is reporters are running around getting reaction. We're getting our reaction up here. We have with us the Deputy Majority Leader in the New Jersey Senate, John Bennett of Monmouth County. This seemed like, I heard the comment made, this is a pretty bipartisan speech here, and I was struck by the number of times the governor got good applause from your side of the aisle.
Well, it's mostly because he mentioned an awful lot of the initiatives that were started by Republican legislators. And so we were joining together with Republican legislators in the continuing spirit of bipartisanship that has repeatedly shown that the legislature leads and the governor then comes on board and follows us. This is a departure from what we used to have in the 80s when we had a governor that was a leader and offered those initiatives through his administration. We have today the governor who has given an excellent speech. He's hit on the key areas that many of us join him with, on health care, on education, on jobs and the economy. The issues are the same whether they are going to be handled by Republicans or Democrats. The first 6 months of this past year, however, were confrontational, and the governor fought every step of the way of the efforts to slow down government, make it smaller, cut taxes, cut back on the budgets. We had to do that over his objection each and every time. And somewhere along the line around July 1st, I think he saw there was a change happening in this country and in New Jersey, and that business as usual was going to change. What he talked about today were what happened when the Republicans came up with health care reform package and Senator Bassano, and when Republicans moved forward to change QEA and said that's a failure, we want to go in a different direction, and we think the state does too. Yes, he worked with us and there were disagreements, but it was the Republicans' initiatives that have led in many regards that we feel to a job recovery, to a lowering of the sales tax that has resulted in new car sales going up 10% in just the last quarter alone. Lowering the taxes and jump-starting the economy is what's brought about the change. The governor talks today about things are better in New Jersey. We agree, things are better in New Jersey, and we think in the 1 year that we've had both houses of the legislature, we've led that change.
Well, are you saying that this idea for high-tech technology centers, rebuilding New Jersey's R&D facilities, these are all things that are Republican ideas? These aren't initiatives that he brought up on his own?
In the 1980s, when Tom Kean was the governor, we talked about the expansion of R&D, and in fact, he called upon the bonds issue to turn around and do research and development, high-tech expansion in the state, which started the initial groundswell, I believe, in changing from a manufacturing base to a high technology. And expansion is the right thing to do, and that's what we're building upon ideas that have come from the Republican Party in the past. The Economic Recovery Act under the leadership and Bob Huey, the work that was done on the expansion of jobs under Bill Gormley, and the thought that we're going to have facilities, infrastructure done. They're the kind of things that we're picking up on that were Republican initiatives. We need bipartisan government to make it work. We need both sides of the aisle, and in this case, two houses and the governor to work together. What we've demonstrated is that we as a legislature are not a second-class branch of government anymore. We intend to work with the governor, whomever that governor may be, whether it be Republican or a Democrat, and if that governor doesn't offer the initiatives to lead, then we will. And when he does offer initiatives to lead, we'll listen, and we'll see which are the ones that we believe can fit into the overall scheme and make the New Jersey a better place. Some of the things he talked about today are exactly the same things that we as Republicans talk about and believe are the direction to go, and that's a better economy and more jobs.
The spirit of cooperation that we did hear the governor talk about, which we've also heard the Senate President and the Assembly Speaker also talk about, isn't this also a way of avoiding confrontation in what's an election year, and aren't your fates interlinked? The legislature, the Republicans' majorities, and the governor. So is it best perhaps from a legislative standpoint to take the easy road, or how bumpy a time is the governor going to have this year?
That all depends as to what his cooperation factor will be as we go into this budget that we have to finalize and we go into a campaign. Yes, of course, it's a campaign year, and we probably have heard the first political speech of that campaign year, and I'm just...
And you're giving the political response.
Yeah, and giving the political response, but it is an election year, and things are completely up. I think that what we do find is that the governor, in moving in that direction, saw 6 months of what direct confrontation with this legislature will result in. It will result in overrides. It will result in a direction that needs cooperation. And now what we're seeing is the ability that he wants to work with us. Either we'll lead and he'll follow, or we'll work together, but we're certainly not going to allow ourselves to be pushed. We're going to speak out for what we believe is the right thing to do, and if that election year results in us working together, fine, as long as the bottom line is that it's for the betterment of the people of the state of New Jersey.
All right, Deputy Majority Leader in the Senate, John Bennett, thank you for joining us here for our live coverage of the Governor's State of the State message. We'll just see how well everybody does work together in the next year. Thanks for joining us again. I'm Larry Stupnagel at the State House. Let's go back now to the studio in Kent Manahan.
All right, Larry, and thank you. Steve D'Amico, Bill Palatucci, gentlemen here with me in our Trenton studio. Thank you again for being with us. And, you know, New Jersey has lost widespread jobs during the recessionary period, suffered a huge loss in tax revenues during this period of time. Steve, did the governor today succeed in shining a positive light, do you think, on those statistics?
Yeah, I think he did. And in fact, I was going to say one of the things that's missing besides tax proposals from this speech is bad economic news. And the question is not when we're going to come out of the recession, but how. And I think what he successfully demonstrated in this speech and also in the year past in terms of the things that have already been put in place is that there has been a basic structural improvement in New Jersey's economy, such that as we begin to emerge from this national recession, New Jersey is going to be well positioned to be a very strong competitor.
The
So I
governor
think it's
said
good
he
news.
would not call for tax-raising measures.
Right.
Would he take the Bush pledge and say no new taxes?
Well, how about better yet? What's he going to say when Bill Clinton raises taxes this year? What's he going to say when Bill Clinton doesn't deliver on the middle-class tax cut? What's he going to say when Bill Clinton walks away from a pledge to reduce the deficit in 4 years? I think that's a problem for Jim Florio down the road a bit.
If it is if he's running for president. I think he's got to worry about running the state of New Jersey right now.
No ripple effect if in fact that does happen at the national level?
I don't think so at all.
For the only governor in the country running
The critical question here is really whether or not the goods get delivered to the people of New Jersey. And I think that's why you see bipartisanship. Yeah. As hard as John Bennett tried in his comments today, people are falling all over one another to cooperate, even though there was a little bit of partisanship in what he said and me first phenomenon to what he said. Look, the point is, everybody is falling all over each other to get some things done because they know from last November's elections that the electorate does not tolerate gridlock.
So everybody wants a little bit of the credit.
Well, and Democrats are falling over themselves not to use the T word and not talk about taxes. And whether it's Bill Clinton or Jim Florio, Democrats don't want to be reminded that they are the guys that have this image of tax and spend. And I didn't mean to get off on to bring
Well, it won't be an issue this year, though, Bill, because the Republicans removed it from the agenda. They didn't act on it themselves.
It may be an issue, and I would suggest that they continue to make it an issue by looking for ways. Let's cut we cut the sales tax last year.
And it has no effect, but to remove $600 million from our revenue base.
Even if you could argue that, my point is let's the Republican legislature talk about let's finding a way to cut the income tax this year. Let's find a way to cut the budget again this year. Those are not issues that Jim Florio and them...
It would be great to see the Republicans do what they said they were going to do in 1991, which is to review the entire package. It was the keystone of their platform.
And they have said...
They never did it. The other keystone was initiative and referendum. They haven't done that. They said they would do campaign finance. They haven't done that.
Is the governor in political trouble, in your estimation?
This governor? Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. But by anybody's estimation, by any polls, he's got a long way to go.
His polls are up.
Well, yeah, for Jim Florio, they're up and they're from zero. I mean, congratulations. I mean, the guy's got a long way to go. Again, I said at the outset, I don't think he's in bad shape as Brendan Byrne was, but he's still in trouble, and he'll be a formidable opponent in November. The point we've got to get back to here is that Jim Florio has no major accomplishments in the bank and done in order to move forward with and to say, I'm proud of what we've done. He's here. He keeps trying to change the subject. And whether he's talking about some new programs in terms of the economy and when we've done some things on health care, they're little bitty parts of programs, and there's no major accomplishments. You walk around New Jersey and ask people, what has Jim Florio done? Just tell me in one sentence, what do you know Jim Florio for? And they say, well, they will either say nothing or they'll say, he's the guy who raised our taxes.
See, I'm not so sure that's true. I think that might have been true a year ago. But I
So
believe
what
that
would
the
they
fact
say
that,
then to that
well,
question? What would the answer
I
be?
think the answer to the question is he's a guy who's trying to deal with the problems. I mean, inevitably,
But what are
even
the
people who take
accomplishments in
issue
dealing with the problems
well,
then,
people
to
will
answer?
say that he's created jobs, and the fact is that he
He's been
has,
running
and
and
he's done that in conjunction. Look, it's a lot more. He took the central issue on people's minds and tried to do something about it, which was the downfall of your president, Bill. I mean, the fact that Bush couldn't even address the economy. So at least Jim Florio, as a Democrat, was trying to redress the problems
by
of the
raising taxes
national
by $3
economy.
billion.
No. I'm talking about what happened in the last year and how he decided, even before last November's election, to get rid of gridlock and to work with
that's not
Republicans
true. He did do that,
well, the economic recovery package was bipartisan, wasn't it?
Yeah, but now the
Bob Huey is a
you can't-
Republican,
but not
isn't
a
he?
year ago. In the last 6 months, you're right, but not a year ago.
No, ever since
Anybody else
the
going to
last State of
step
State.
in to run against Jim Florio?
I think it's unlikely. I don't see any signs that there is an insurgent campaign being put together, and I think the reason why is because people think in the party think he's well positioned. People believe that the political circumstances over the last 6 months, certainly since the November election, have become more positive for Jim Florio in this environment. And I think he's in very good shape.
And you indicated, I think, when I spoke to you earlier, that this is a tough time to raise money.
Very difficult time for anybody,
for a
especially a
challenger.
minority
Anyone
party
else
member.
going to jump in besides Christy Whitman, who's expected to at the end of this month, and Kerry Edwards, who's already put his hat in the ring on the Republican side?
I'm sure there will be. It's
Some
so
names?
easy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so easy to get on a ballot in New Jersey. We've got a third candidate from Morris County in the race. I think the principal candidates will be Christie and Carey. I happen to be working for Carey at the moment, but you never know in New Jersey. That filing date is not until April, and who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
You're working with Kerry Edwards, and tomorrow, I believe, you kick off a bus tour in New Jersey, taking a page from perhaps
Whatever works.
the Democrat
That's right.
who won the national election this year. Tell us about that effort and what you'll be up to beginning tomorrow.
It's a 3-day bus tour touching all 21 counties of the state, looking to give Carey the opportunity to show his knowledge of state government and his concern about issues like tourism and the beach. He'll be speaking with farmers in Salem County and Sussex County. He'll be talking with law enforcement officers in South Jersey and North Jersey, demonstrating some political clout and support with Republican voters and organizational support that he's got in different places.
We have left, Steve, to be fair, what will be the next step for the governor? Obviously, he is going to declare a run for re-election, so that will be the first step of that process. And then where does it go from there?
I think obviously the first thing he's got to do is come up with a budget proposal that is going to work for the Republicans as well, and I think that's likely. Politically, yeah, he's got to make a decision about, when is a propitious time to make a decision and go ahead. Obviously, the conventional wisdom is that he's going to run. There's no evidence to the contrary right now. And just then start to run on his record. And I think it's a substantial one.
Steve D'Amico, Bill Palatucci, you've been with me for the afternoon. Thank you very much for being with us today. And thanks to you, our audience, for being here, and to our signer during the governor's speech, Dill Tantum. And these reminders before we leave you: NJN will rebroadcast the State of the State address tonight at 10:30, followed by the Republican response. And as always, be sure to tune in to NJN News for more on today's speech and the rest of the day's events. That's tonight at 6, 7, and 10 o'clock. I'm Kent Manahan. See you then.